today's mindful moment. Ever think about how, like, someone who's totally clumsy, really accident prone, could actually become a hero? Well, that's kind of what we're diving into today with Jill Murphy's The Worst Witch. And it's exploring this world of Miss Cackle's Academy for Witches.
Yeah, so from what I've read about it, it sounds like this academy it's no ordinary school. Like it's this imposing Gothic style building, and it's perched high on a mountain. It's filled with, like all the typical witchy things like bubbling cauldrons and, soaring broomsticks and just a whole lot of tradition.
And uniforms. Don't forget the uniforms, like
Yeah.
black gym slips, gray shirts, black stockings, and boots.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit dreary, don't you think? I mean, you'd think that even witches would want like a little bit more color.
Well, they do, get to wear like house sashes, and they have their school badge.
Oh, okay.
But I think the emphasis on everybody wearing the same thing it's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's almost like it's about, making sure everybody fits in.
Yeah.
And conforming to like this witchy standard.
Yeah, like maybe suppressing individuality, at least on the surface.
Right.
Which makes our main character, Mildred Hubble, stand out even more. She's this well-meaning, but she's incredibly accident-prone.
Yeah.
And she's a first-year witch.
Yeah.
Who just can't seem to get things right.
I mean, her clumsiness it's almost legendary. Like, even on her second day, she manages to crash her broomstick
Oh, my God.
into the yard wall, and then she tries to fix it with, like, glue and tape.
You can imagine how well that went.
Oh, disaster.
Yeah.
Complete disaster.
It's like a metaphor for her whole experience at the academy, Like trying to fit in and to master all these witchy skills, but always falling short.
Right.
But here's the thing, even with all those mishaps that she has, Mildred has a really good heart, and that's going to be crucial as the story kind of unfolds.
It really does make you wonder if, like, all that clumsiness that she has, if it's really just this, like, surface level flaw, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's even, like, a sign of something a little bit deeper. Do you think it's possible that, like, her unconventional approach to magic is actually, like, a strength in disguise?
Oh, that's an interesting way to think about it. It's kind of like those, hidden gems of wisdom that you sometimes find in the most unexpected places,
Yeah.
Just a little nugget of insight can totally shift your whole perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of unexpected,
Yeah.
all of the first years are given a kitten, right? And hers is a tabby.
Yes.
Every other witch has a black cat,
Mm-hmm.
but not Mildred. It's just another way that she stands out from the crowd.
Yeah, it's almost like the universe is giving us a little hint that she's not going to follow the same path as everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's Ethel Hallow. She's Mildred's rival, and she's kind of everything that Mildred isn't. She's
Right.
talented and confident.
Yeah, and a bit arrogant.
Yeah.
But their rivalry really kind of comes to a head when Mildred actually accidentally turns Ethel into a pig
Oh.
during this really heated argument that they have.
Oh, wow. Talk about a spell gone wrong. Although I have to say that Ethel wasn't exactly innocent in that situation.
Oh, no, not at all.
She seems to enjoy pushing Mildred's buttons.
Yeah, she does.
It's that classic dynamic you see in like so many stories.
Yeah.
The underdog versus the seemingly perfect overachiever.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that Ethel's talent, it doesn't necessarily make her a better witch, just a more skilled one.
Right.
So maybe true witchiness is about more than just, technical ability. Maybe it's about heart,
Yeah.
and about using your powers for good, even if you make a few mistakes along the way.
Absolutely.
And speaking of mistakes, Mildred's potion-making skills they're about as disastrous as her broomstick flying.
Oh, yeah.
So during a laughter potion test,
Mhm.
she and her best friend Maud, they accidentally disappear
Oh, no.
after adding pondweed to their potion.
Wow.
Can you imagine the chaos in that classroom?
I can only imagine.
Like potions are bubbling and students are giggling, and then poof,
Yeah.
two of them vanish into thin air.
They eventually reappear, though, right?
Yeah, they do.
Head first, no less.
Head first. I know.
But I think it's just another really clear sign that Mildred doesn't quite fit the mold of a traditional witch.
No, she really doesn't.
But Maud's interesting too. Maud is always trying to rein Mildred in, get her to like think before she acts.
Yeah.
But even Maud gets kind of swept up in Mildred's crazy schemes sometimes.
It makes you wonder if true friendship, if it means always playing it safe, or if it means supporting each other, even when things get a little messy?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So as if disappearing during a potion test wasn't enough, things get even more complicated for Mildred when Miss Hardbroom, she's the Academy's strict, formidable flying instructor.
Yeah, she is something else.
I know she is. Well, she decides that their class will perform a broomstick formation display for the Halloween celebrations.
Oh, wow.
A broomstick formation team. With Mildred's track record, this just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But they do actually manage to learn quite a few formations.
Wow.
Like they learn the flying V, and they do this nosedive across the yard, much to Miss Cackle's horror.
I bet.
And they even managed to form a circle in the air.
They actually pulled it off. I'm kind of impressed.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling that this is where things start to go really wrong.
You guessed it. And it all comes back to Mildred's rivalry with Ethel.
Oh.
Remember how Ethel got turned into a pig?
Yeah.
Well, she hasn't forgotten, and she's about to get her revenge.
Oh, this can't be good.
What
What did she do?
Well, Ethel is obviously still harboring some resentment over that whole incident.
Understandably so.
Understandably so. So she lends Mildred her spare broomstick for the display, but not without secretly casting a spell on it first.
So it's sabotage.
Yes.
And I bet it leads to a complete catastrophe during the performance.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, no.
So during the display, Mildred's broomstick completely malfunctions.
Oh, no.
And it ruins the entire performance. It ends up putting the whole school's reputation in jeopardy.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the fallout from that. So poor Mildred. I mean, she's falsely accused and she's facing potential expulsion.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that she decides to run away.
Yeah, it's definitely a rash decision.
Yep.
But it's understandable given the circumstances, right? She feels totally alone, she feels misunderstood, and she's completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But as she's fleeing through the forest, she overhears something that changes absolutely everything.
Okay, so here's where the story takes that, shocking truth kind of turn.
Yeah.
Right. So what does she hear?
She overhears this group of witches, and they are plotting to take over Miss Cackle's academy.
What?
Yeah, and their plan is, it's pretty devious. They're going to sneak in while everybody is asleep after all the Halloween celebrations, and they're going to turn everyone into frogs.
Using an invisibility potion.
Yes.
Hold on a second. Turn everybody into frogs. That's taking ambition to a whole new level. But what can one seemingly powerless, accident-prone witch do against a whole group of, experienced invisible witches? It just seems like an impossible situation.
It really does, doesn't it? And that's where we're going to leave you hanging for now.
Oh, come on.
What do you think Mildred does next? We'll reveal her daring move and the shocking consequences when we return after this quick word from our sponsor.
That's right. We all need those moments of clarity and insight, those little pauses that help us, navigate life's challenges. Stay tuned to learn how mindful moments can nourish your mind with, insightful, inspiring content anytime, anywhere. We'll be back with part 2 in just a moment.
Welcome back. So we left off with Mildred facing this impossible situation. This group of rogue witches are planning to turn the whole academy into frogs.
Yeah, talk about a hostile takeover. So what does she even do? I mean, does she run back to the academy and warn everybody?
Well, she considers it, but she remembers how nobody believed her about the sabotaged broomstick.
Right.
And these rogue witches, I mean, they have an invisibility potion, how do you even fight something that you can't see?
It's true. It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but you're missing half the pieces. Those moments when you feel totally stuck, you have no idea what to do next.
Right.
Sometimes, a little dose of mindful moments can offer a really fresh perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes all it takes is just a little nudge to kind of shift your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mildred actually finds her nudge in her trusty spell book. But instead of finding a spell that can reverse, the frog spell, all she can find is one for turning things into snails.
Snails?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's her big plan to save the academy. I mean, it doesn't exactly scream powerful magic.
I know, right? It's such a quirky and unexpected solution, But I think that's part of what makes the story so compelling.
Yeah.
It reminds us that sometimes, those unconventional solutions are actually the most effective.
Yeah, and sometimes it's okay to embrace the unexpected. It's like those aha moments that you get with mindful moments, when a new idea or a perspective just clicks into place.
For sure, for sure. So back to Mildred and her snails. She knows that it's against the witch's code to use magic against other witches without their knowledge.
Right.
But she also realizes that these rogue witches are planning to do the exact same thing to the whole school.
Yeah, that's a real ethical dilemma.
It is.
Like, do you follow the rules when you know that other people are just going to break them? It's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
It's one that we face a lot in our own lives too.
All the time.
So what does she decide? Does she unleash the snail spell?
She does. She takes a deep breath. She pictures those rogue witches in her mind, and boom, suddenly there's just a bunch of snails.
What?
All shapes and sizes.
Oh my God.
Right where those witches were standing just a moment ago.
Wow.
It's like a scene straight out of a comedy, you know?
Yeah.
But the stakes are really high.
It's so true. You know, it makes you wonder if humor is sometimes like the best defense mechanism, a way of coping when you're dealing with stressful situations.
That's a good point.
Maybe that's why we find Mildred's, clumsiness so endearing.
Yeah,
It's a good reminder not to take ourselves too seriously.
that's true. Now, remember how Mildred was still facing that possible expulsion for that whole broomstick incident?
Yeah, she ran away before that meeting with Miss Cackle and Miss Hardbroom.
Right, exactly. So she gathers up all these snails, puts them in one of the rogue witches' boxes, and heads back to the academy.
Can you imagine walking into school carrying a box of snails?
I can't even imagine.
What do you think? What do you think is going through her mind at that point?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. A mix of fear and determination, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, she's probably terrified of facing Miss Harbroom and what she might do to her.
Yeah.
But she's also determined to expose those witches, you know? It's like that little voice that we all have inside of us, you know, that urges us to stand up for what's right, even when it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as she's heading up the stairs to her room,
Mm-hmm.
she runs right into Miss Hardbroom. Talk about bad timing.
Oh my gosh, that must have been so awkward.
Right?
How does she even begin to explain that box of snails?
She tries to tell Miss Hardbroom about the rogue witches and their plan to turn everybody into frogs.
Mm-hmm.
She even describes one of the witches who looks just like Miss Cackle.
Wait, hold on. A witch who looks like Miss Cackle.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right. Miss Hardbroom is very skeptical, of course.
Of course.
But Mildred insists just telling the truth.
Okay.
Luckily, Miss Cackle overhears their conversation.
Oh, good.
And she starts to realize that Mildred might actually be onto something.
Because Miss Cackle has a secret.
Yes. It turns out that Miss Cackle actually has a wicked twin sister
What?
named Agatha. And Agatha, she has a history of trying to stir up trouble.
A wicked twin.
Oh!
Okay, now it's all starting to make sense. But so Miss Cackle believes Mildred's story. What about Miss Hardbroom?
Well, Miss Hardbroom, you know, ever the stickler for rules.
Yeah.
She points out that there's this specific rule in the witches' code
Oh.
that states that any witch who has been transformed for self-defense cannot retaliate against their captor once they're turned back.
Oh, that's pretty convenient.
Yeah, it is. It gives Mildred a surprising advantage. So they all line up the snails.
Totally.
And they ask Agatha to identify herself.
Can you imagine being Agatha, trapped in a snail's body and forced out yourself like
No,
that?
she must have been fuming.
I bet.
But she reluctantly shuffles out of the line and admits defeat.
Wow.
Then Miss Hardbroom reverses the spell,
Okay.
and suddenly Miss Cackle's office is just filled with a room full of very angry witches.
Talk about a dramatic reveal. I bet those rogue witches were not expecting to get outsmarted by the worst witch.
Not at all, and they can't even retaliate because of that rule in the witches' code. Mildred's her quick thinking and her very unconventional spell, they saved the day.
It's a great reminder that sometimes breaking the rules, or at least bending them a little, can lead to the best outcome.
Yeah.
Just like those moments when you challenge conventional wisdom and discover a totally new way of thinking.
Exactly. And speaking of challenging convention, Miss Cackle, who is incredibly grateful and relieved,
Yeah.
she cancels Mildred's interview and declares a half-holiday in her honor.
From potential expulsion to hero of the school. That's quite a turnaround.
It is.
I bet Mildred was feeling pretty good about herself at that moment.
You would think so, right? But there's one more twist to this story.
Another twist. You're killing me. We're going to have to wait for part 3 to find out what happens next. But in the meantime, if you're looking for those little aha moments, you know, those moments that can really change your perspective,
Yeah.
check out mindful moments.
Yeah, it's like having a wise friend just whispering words of encouragement and insight right in your ear.
It really is.
Oh.
We'll be back with the exciting conclusion to this deep dive in just a moment. Okay, so last time we were talking about how Mildred had pulled off like the impossible. She saved Miss Cackle's academy from from this hostile takeover, and all she used was a snail spell and her quick wit.
I know. It was amazing.
Total plot twist.
Mm.
But just when it seemed like she was finally out of trouble, about to really enjoy being the hero, she runs into Miss Hardbroom. Is Miss Hardbroom gonna punish her after all? After everything that she's been through? That just seems so unfair.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But remember that softer side of Miss Hardbroom that we saw earlier? The one where she recognized Mildred's courage and her sense of fairness?
You mean when she reminded Miss Cackle about that rule, in the witch's code?
Yeah.
That prevented those rogue witches from getting revenge?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that same side of Miss Hardbroom kind of emerges again.
Oh, good.
Instead of scolding Mildred.
Yeah.
She just offers her a genuine thank you.
Wow, a thank you from Miss Hardbroom. That's almost as surprising as Mildred's snail spell.
Right.
It really shows you, though, that even the strictest and the most intimidating people can have a heart.
It does, doesn't it? It's a good reminder that we shouldn't judge people just based on how they look or what their reputation is. There's often a lot more to somebody than we might initially realize.
That's so true. It's kind of like those mindful moments audio snippets. They seem simple on the surface, but then they offer these really profound insights that really stay with you.
Absolutely. But hold on. You said that there was another twist to the story.
Yeah.
What happens after Miss Hardbroom? Thanks, Mildred.
Okay, so as Mildred and Maud are hurrying away,
Yep.
They're relieved, they're excited about their half holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Hardbroom, she decides to have a little fun.
Oh no.
She uses her magic to speak directly into Mildred's ear, and it startles her.
Oh, classic Miss Hardbroom.
Right. Even in a moment of gratitude she can't resist, just a little playful scare.
And exactly. And then as Mildred and Maud are fleeing in terror, you just hear Miss Hardbroom's laughter echoing down the hallway.
That's great.
It's just such a great scene because it captures her character so well.
Yeah.
She's so strict and demanding, but she's also capable of humor and warmth.
It makes you wonder if maybe her strictness is just her way of pushing her students to be their best.
Yeah.
Yeah. To face their fears and to overcome those challenges.
That's a good point.
Kind of like how, mindful moments challenges our assumptions and encourages us to look at things from a new perspective.
Yeah, it does. And it kind of brings us back to the real heart of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Mildred, the worst witch. She might not be the most skilled or the most talented witch, but she has these qualities that are so much more valuable, like courage and resourcefulness and this really strong sense of justice.
She reminds us that heroes really do come in all shapes and sizes.
They do.
And that sometimes the most unlikely people can do really extraordinary things.
Absolutely. And that it's okay to embrace those imperfections, that clumsiness, because those very things can actually become our greatest strengths.
So what does this all mean? Well, The Worst Witch isn't just some children's story about magic and mishaps. It's a story about the power of resilience, the importance of standing up for what you believe in, and those surprising ways in which, what we think of as our weaknesses can actually become our biggest assets.
It really encourages us to challenge our assumptions, to look beyond just, surface appearances, and to embrace those unexpected turns that life throws our way.
And just like Mildred's journey, taught us valuable lessons about courage and self-discovery. We hope that this deep dive has sparked some new insights for you too.
Yeah, if you're eager to experience the full magic of Mildred's adventures, we highly recommend checking out Jill Murphy's The Worst Witch.
And if you're looking for your own little daily dose of magic, those insightful nuggets that can really shift your perspective and nourish your mind, be sure to check out Mindful Moments.
It's the perfect way to just add a little bit of wonder and wisdom into your everyday life.
Subscribe, share with your friends, and purchase via the link provided. You won't regret it.